With Breath of the Wild taking inspiration from many different parts of the Zelda legends, many fans have been speculating wildly about where this new tale may fit into the larger legend. For me, with the information we know, I only see a couple possibilities for where this game could fit. Before I address either possibility, I want to point something very important out about this kind of speculation. Remember the title of this series, The Legend of Zelda. The Legend. The plot of each game is nothing more than a legend, and even legends based on true things often have details that don't match up. So things like a structure being decayed differently from other times is not a conclusive detail. The reason we can have hyper-realistic characters in one game, cartoony characters in another, and characters that seem to be painted is just because the legend is recorded and depicted in a different way over time and depending on who is telling each legend. Much like the images you imagine reading a book differ from another person's due to your unique perspective. A lot of fans forget the series is just a series of legends, and every tiny detail is not necessarily canon. I know this also opens up an endless number of possibilities, but the majority of each game does seem to be canon, so only tiny details that might have been recorded vaguely or been embellished are probably mutable and can't be used as conclusive proof. First, let's start with the theory I think is less likely, and that this takes place before Wind Waker. And after Wind Waker. At least kind of. Between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, an incarnation of Demise, likely Ganon, returned and there was no record of a hero to challenge him, so the goddesses flooded Hyrule. What if there was a hero, but the hero was defeated quickly, and few knew of him? So immediately before Hyrule flooded, the hero was sealed into a pod, and the cave was sealed. And in 100 years, this hero would wake healed of his grave wounds, and challenge Ganon once again. However, while he was sleeping, another incarnation was born, and embarked on a quest ending with Ganon being petrified, and sealed within Hyrule Castle. Now, the waters have mostly receded, and this Link is fighting the soul of Ganon, who is seeking freedom, while elsewhere, another Link is creating a new Hyrule on another continent, housing an ancient demon. The biggest problem with this theory is that it is questionable if within 100 years, the era without a hero would become as legendary as it was at the beginning of Wind Waker, and that the water would recede quickly enough, and plants would begin to grow again, and the Guardians wouldn't all be shorted out from the water. Which brings me to what I think is closer to truth. This is the last Zelda game. No, not the end of the series like some are suggesting of Pokemon. I mean the last game timeline-wise. Currently, the latest game in the timeline is The Adventure of Link, which occurred immediately following the first Zelda game, which this game is taking a lot of inspiration from. This would explain why Hyrule is in ruins. It is in the defeated hero timeline where Ganondorf was victorious. He corrupted Paradise, and the Master Sword was eventually lost forever. Or at least until now, when it is discovered rusted and chipped. The developers also said they based portions of the layout on the illustrations for the original game, showing portions of Hyrule the final Link never got to explore. Let's also not forget how desolate and bleak Hyrule is in the original. There is no grass, there are few structures, and small towns. And there are buried dungeons accessible through the mouth of a small structure that looks much like the shrine entrances which Link can warp to, just like the dungeons. There's more though. Let's look at the storyline for Adventure of Link, where after defeating Ganon, Link goes on another journey to wake Princess Zelda, who has been sleeping for over 100 years after her brother hired a wizard to interrogate her, but the wizard instead put her to sleep. At the same time, Link, who currently possesses the Triforce of Power and Wisdom, also is called to by the Triforce of Courage, and Ganon's followers seek to revive him. Link ultimately saves the ancient Zelda, obtains the third Triforce, and prevents Ganon from being resurrected. Suppose this involved securing Ganon's remains and holding them deep within Hyrule Castle, and because Link now has all three parts of the Triforce, he, the two Zeldas, and Impa devise a plan to sedate and seal him for 100 years, at which point they expect Ganon's immortal spirit will awaken again and seek vengeance. In this case, as a cloud known as Calamity Ganon that seeks a body again. Using the magic or technology that puts Zelda to sleep, they put Link to sleep for 100 years, and then one day, they wake him to send him on a mission through the healing Hyrule to destroy Ganon permanently using the power of all three Triforces and the hero's spirit, turning a history created from evil's victory into the one where good actually prevails in the end. Where do you think Breath of the Wild will fit in? Do you think it could be the final game in the defeated timeline?